Welcome to What's It Worth, the art of determining and tracking business value. Hello, I'm Ken Pugh. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, agility focuses on rapidly delivering business value. So we've got to ask the question, what is it? What is business value? How do we measure business value? And what do we do with it? Three topics we'll be covering today. So I'm Ken Pugh, the Chief Consultant of KenPugh, Inc. I'm the author of 7 books, including Lean, Agile, Acceptance Test-Driven Development, also known as Behavior-Driven Development, Pre-Factoring, Extreme Abstraction, Extreme Separation, and Extreme Readability. And that won the 2006 Jolt Award. And finally, I'm the co-author of the Safe Agile Software Engineering certification. So I've got one principle. Every statement has an exception except this one. That is, I've got one principle. Every statement has an exception except this one. What do I mean by that? When I say always, I don't mean always, but usually always. And when I say never, I don't mean never ever, but usually never. So if there's something I say and you go, that's not going to work here, feel free to raise your hand with the exception, because we learn by the exceptions as well as by the rules. And the triad. The customer, tester, and developer, who are all responsible for quality. Now, the customer's job is to provide the requirements and to provide those business value estimates. The developer's job is to implement the requirements and to provide the implementation estimates. And then we have the tester, whose role is to critically analyze both the requirements and the implementation. So, business value, what is it? As one Supreme Court justice says about a different topic, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. Well, we've got to at least come up with some idea of business value if we're going to measure it. So it could be increased revenue, sales, royalties, fees, measured in dollars. It could be decreased expenses, also in dollars, because we're using less resources, or perhaps we're making more efficient use of resources. How about customer satisfaction? That's got business value in it. But is it worth dollars? Can we measure dollars for those satisfiers which a product must have, the detractors which take away from the product, and the promoters which give value over competitors' products? How about staying in business? That definitely has business value. Or if you happen to have a corporation which is subject to Sarbanes-Oxley, how about staying out of jail? CEO would like to do that. Now, I had one developer say, well, I'd like my CEO to go to jail. And I said, the business value is from the point of the customer, not of the developer. And avoiding risk, being sure to keep us out of trouble. And finally, how about information? What to build, how to build it. That's got to be worth something, but it's hard to put a dollar quantity onto it. Now let's start with hypotheses-driven development, or HDD. In HDD, you come up with an idea for a functional change that's going to deliver business value. And you come up with hypotheses, how the customer is going to use that functionality, which is a test of whether you're building the right thing. And it comes from Lean Startup, Lean UX, and a few other places. And what you do is create the minimum marketable feature. That is the smallest piece of functionality that has some intrinsic business value. Now, what we're going to do is create an hypothesis. And here's a template for one. We think that some capability will produce some outcome based on this metric. Here's an example. We think that cruise control with the speed limit finder will be used by drivers 90% of the time as measured by telemetry. There is a MMF with this hypothesis. Now, what will happen? Well, we create our hypotheses and we build the MMF, and then we're going to check to see whether the MMF delivered that business value. And we got three possibilities. Nope, it didn't do it, in which case we simply stop. No sense in working anymore on that MMF. Or we got exactly what we asked for, in which case we continue on to the next MMF. Or perhaps we didn't quite get there, so we're going to make a pivot. And maybe a change in the MMF, maybe a change in hypotheses. And try it again. So, here's the idea. We're going to have a cruise control with the speed automatically set by the speed limit finder. And the idea is where our speed limit is going to be determined by either GPS with a map or a sign reader, or maybe both. Okay. Now, Elon Musk is going to probably want one of these, or else all of his Bitcoin earnings may be taken away by having to pay for speed fines. So, what's our minimum marketable feature? Here's a little more detail. Well, given a speed limit sign, when the car sees it, then we set the speed limit to 35 miles per hour. Pretty straightforward. So, here's our hypotheses. We think that cruise control with a speed limit finder will be used by drivers 90% of the time as measured by telemetry. So, what do you think will be the results? Yeah, 0.01%. Okay. So it's maybe a time for a pivot. Maybe we need an ability to set the speed to some amount over the speed limit. What should that be? 5 miles per hour? 10? 15? 20? Oh, if you're going to sell this in Massachusetts, where I used to live, 20 miles per hour is the minimum that you're driving over the speed limit. Or perhaps we just display the speed limit. Relatively simple. Or maybe you give a warning if you happen to be a particular miles per hour over it. And Elon Musk can rest happy, because he's not going to be responsible for setting the speed over the speed limit. The driver is. So what are some other MMF possibilities? Well, we got the cruise control with the speed automatically set by the speed limit. We got an automatic adjustment of mirrors by an RFID tag in the driver's key. So when you get in, the mirrors just set themselves to where they should be. Or maybe the radio station has a selection on the key. So when the passenger gets in and also has a key, they click a button and the radio stations change to the passenger's preferences. All those MMFs, we come up with hypotheses and that business value. Okay? So, what are the business values of these? Well, let's see how we can estimate business value. We could use dollars. But that's a little tough because there are a lot of things that we can't measure with dollars. Difficult to compute. So what we're going to use is unitless business value. And that's going to allow comparison between non-dollar business value and dollar business values. Okay? And we're going to use that Fibonacci series, just like story point estimates are made. But we might alter it a little bit because we're going to do a calculation with business value. So we might multiply each by 10. So, how do we get to these business value points? Well, one way to do it is triangulation, aka the white elephant. And in this, we compare our features to other features and group features that seem to have similar business value together. Well, let's see how we can triangulate. We're going to place our cards in a pile with a feature on each one. And then we'll take the top card, put it on our playing surface. The next player takes the next card and puts it onto the playing surface. It could either be the same, above, or below. And in succession then, each player either plays a top card from the pile or moves a card relative to the other cards, or passes, says, I'm happy. And you keep going until there are no more cards in the pile and no player wishes to move a card. Now, what can happen? You get two players who keep going, I want to move that one, and the other player moves it back, and you go, back. And they keep cycling. And what I suggest is simply taking away their cell phones and don't give them back until they've decided what the sequence should be. Well, after we finally got them in order, we'll assign points to each group. So let's see how this works. We're going to use common household tasks instead of complex software features here. Set the microwave clock. We'll just move that off and put it on the table. First player comes and says, clean the basement. What's it relative to set the microwave clock in terms of business value? Is it higher, equal, or lower than setting the microwave clock? And then we'll come with the next, mowing the lawn. Higher, maybe it's equal to setting the microwave clock. Taking out the trash. That sounds like that could be pretty high. And repairing that leaky faucet. Well, maybe you can deal with it for a little bit of time. So there we have it. Taking out the trash, repair leaky faucet, clock, lawn, and basement. Let's just organize it. And what we might do is if two things have extremely different business values, so they don't necessarily fall right next to each other in the Fibonacci series, then you can move them and separate them out. And now that we've done that, we're going to simply assign our business value points, 1, 8, 13, and 20. And write them on the cards. We've just assigned business value. Now, what are we going to do with it? Well, we have a business value chart. And that's got our business value over time and as we complete a feature. Then we achieve our business value and we put it on the chart. And every time we complete another feature, we show that as a cumulative business value. It keeps growing and growing. Maybe it starts out a little slow at the beginning of a project because you're still getting things organized, but it should improve after that, the delivery of business value. And every iteration, you just plot the increase in the business value. And put this chart in your Scrum board or your Kanban board or whatever board you're using. And it places a different emphasis on what you're doing. The work that the developers and the testers have done have added this much business value to the company. Well, business value is one half of the equation. We need to estimate our effort points, a time or cost estimate. And I use effort points because they're a relative measure. They're like feature points or story points, relative, but they're even less so because they really don't have much correlation to 1 day, 5 days, and 10 days, like story points start to have after a while. They're simply a relative amount of effort. So, we're going to do the same thing, but now the developers are the ones that are taking the cards off, and they're arranging them in the sequence of effort points. Highest effort at the top, lowest effort at the bottom. And we assign cleaning basement, hasn't been done for a while, for a few years, so that's 100, and taking out the trash is a 1. Microwave clock, well, you gotta find the manual so you know how to do it. And ditto for repairing leaky faucet and so forth. There's our effort points. And we write those down on the card. Now we get to bang for the buck. After we've estimated our business value and our effort, we're going to determine bang for the buck, which is simply the business value points divided by the effort points. Okay. It's a rough return on investment, but let's not worry about 1.3 versus 1.4, small differences like that. Because an estimate divided by an estimate does not make a better estimate. So, how do we do our computation? Well, we've got our business value and our effort points, and we simply start and take business value divided by effort points. There is our BFB of 20, 2.5, 1, 1.5, and 0.01. Bang for the buck for cleaning the basement. And now we arrange them in BFB sequence. Taking out the trash, BFB of 20. Setting the microwave clock, 2.5. Repairing leaking faucets, 1.5. Mowing the lawn, 1. And cleaning the basement, 0.01. We have just scientifically and mathematically proven why basements do not get clean. There is the highest probability that once we've done these sorts of things, there will be many more things that will come in with a much higher bang for the buck than 0.01. Now, got our business value, got our bang for the buck. If we go back to our chart and we're plotting our increase in our business value, well, the bang for the buck is roughly equal to the slope of that business value increase. And if the effort points per iteration are constant, it will be that. Now, requirements need prioritization. Every requirement has a business value. Every one of those features should have some business value, or else why are we requiring it? We need to prioritize the requirements. And we can base it partly on either business value or bang for the buck. Business has computed the business value. We've computed bang for the buck using the effort points. And now here's our business value chart once again. We see our increase of business value over iterations. Now, if you've been prioritizing things by bang for the buck, what will happen is that you'll slowly get a flattening of the curve. And at some point you might say, you know, I think we've given enough effort to this product or project, and there's got to be other products or projects that will give us a better bang for the buck. Another reason for plotting business value. There's another side, technical value, because some work items are technical, i.e. upgrading the database. Doesn't give us new functionality for the user, but it's got to be done. Now, often these technical items are cross-feature, because if it's simply a technical item for a particular MMF, then you just include your effort points with that MMF. And technical items either allow us to do one or two things: create business value with less effort points, or continue to provide business value. That is, if we don't upgrade our database, our system is not going to be working in a year. So, how do we do technical value? Well, make up hypotheses, just like you did for the business MMFs. We think creating a common test database will reduce testing time by 20%. We assign some technical value points to that. Compute our bang for the buck, which is our technical value, divided by our effort points. And now we have our business value items and our technical value items. You can either include these both and prioritize them on the same queue, trying to make an equivalence between the two, or keep them on two separate queues and simply utilize them to say, what is the next business value or technical value item we should be doing? I leave that up to you. Sometimes you want to turn business value into dollars. So if you really need to get to dollars, you try and figure out what the total estimated dollars is for the MMF if it delivered what you thought it was. And now we're going to use our history to determine how much money an effort point would be. We can just go back a project or so. And so what our ROI is going to be is the dollars of business value divided by the dollars of effort points. For example, we have a 100K benefit. We've done historically about an effort point takes us about $10,000. So our total for 30 effort points is $300,000. And so our ROI, 100,000 divided by 300,000, 33%. That'll make the money people happy. We can give you a dollar number. Now, what about the smaller picture? What you typically do is break a feature into smaller stories for scheduling. You just don't put one feature up on your iteration or sprint backlog. But a large feature, if it takes more than an iteration, you wouldn't show any business value increase during that first iteration. So what you can do is allocate your business value to stories. Just a simple allocation scheme. You got 100 stories, you got 100 points of business value, 1 point of business value per story. You don't really achieve the business value until the MMF is out there, but this allows you to have a graph that shows you're continually progressing toward that. What about cross-product or project? You can do bang for the buck across products or projects. You compute a business value, effort points, and bang for the buck. But you just have a couple of issues. And those issues are, you need to have people that have a bigger view across the whole corporate marketplace. And you need to be able to rank non-homogeneous projects, which is tough as to saying what has more business value. And in particular, the teams are going to be estimating and giving effort estimates, and you may have to adjust those effort estimates by some mechanism. But here's a portfolio example. We've got our speed limit finder, we've got our website redo, and we have our human resources automation. We'd like to compute our business value, effort points, and bang for the buck at each of those to see if we've got limited resources, which ones we should do first. So to summarize, we've looked at business value. We looked at what it is. It's a measure of worth to the business. We looked at how to measure it, that customers estimate it. And what do we do with it? Well, we use it to determine bang for the buck, to help us with requirement prioritization, to prioritize those features, and to show the business value growth. Instead of just how many story points did we burn down, how much business value did we contribute this past iteration? Have that business value graph, as I mentioned, on your Scrum board or your Kanban board or whatever board you use. So, start becoming business evaluators. BF, BM, B, VEP. Bang for the buck means business value divided by effort points. Thank you very much. If you need to contact me, I'm on LinkedIn at Ken Pugh. Email me, ken@kenpugh.com, or visit my website, kenpugh.com. Thanks very much, and have a great conference.
28:54.